Good morning, everybody. Well, today's going to be a big day. The presidential debates for the Republicans are tonight, and Trump's going to be simultaneously airing his interview with Tucker Carlson to compete directly with the RNC and with Fox. And so it's a double whammy both from Tucker and from Trump. It's going to be a war of ratings as far as I'm concerned. And the ratings will decide which of the two is more popular since Trump will not be directly with the RNC, and since Tucker will not be directly with Fox. It's going to be interesting to watch. I'll be giving you probably an update tomorrow on that because I think it airs fairly late tonight or later tonight, and so a little too late for the nighttime show. That said, I'm going to talk about some other things today, in particular the Maui fire. A lot going on right now, and as usual, a little too much that we can go into in a single episode. A few updates. Recently, I did an episode talking about it looks like Biden is trying to, or at least he's avoiding doing it, but the left and the establishment appear to be pressing him to declare an emergency declaration around the environment. He's resisting for some reason, which is interesting to watch. He's not wanting to cross that line. They're now using Maui as the tool to try to force his hand. It doesn't look like he's going to budge on it, but Maui's turning into kind of a political disaster in general. Also, before I go into that story, you might have seen as well a lot of updates on they're really pushing the narrative on the next lockdowns. I think we'll call it the 2024 election variant of COVID. It's the 2024 election variant made specifically for that, I believe. And of course, they're talking about universal mail-in ballots and voting from home and new vaccine mandates and a whole nine yards. There is a push already to make this happen. Just as we said earlier in the week, or was it last week, that they would probably do. Maybe tonight I'll give some more updates on that. But yeah, a lot going on. That said, though, let's talk about Maui and the push for the other emergency declaration. So 12 days on, of course, Maui fire. If you watch the videos on the ground, it's pretty bad. We had a reporter in Maui, was it Laihana, and interviewing people. I can tell you, most people believe it was space lasers. I'm just going to be blunt. Video suggests it was downed power lines that caused the fires, but of course there are many other claims otherwise. And realistically at this point I'm willing to believe just about anything, so who knows. Regardless, though, you have a lot of other claims. There's claims that one of the local officials refused to divert water needed to put out the fires. Some people claim they had water, others claim they did not. Take it as you will. Of course, there's a lot of the main accusation is that it was not properly diverted and it prevented some of the firefighting. There's also videos suggesting that police had set up checkpoints and at the very least, if not completely blocking people, were slowing down traffic as people tried to escape. There are some videos of this. There are people from the local area making claims. Take it as you will. There's also some very difficult things, for example, like people asking local politicians how many children died, how many people died. Rumors are spreading, for example, that 1 in every 4 children did not show up for school. Aside from the possibility that they may be among the dead or missing, there's also the possibility that you might not want to go to school after facing some heart-wrenching disaster. You probably lost a lot of classmates. Right? There's many sides of the story, possibly. In other words, we're not really being given clear answers. And in the absence of clear answers, people, of course, begin to make assumptions. And a lot of videos spreading online where people are making claims. It's hard to verify anything. Again, we did have a reporter on the ground, and it's a very sad story. You still have many people missing. You have, of course, the U.S. government there now. FEMA's there, and people are complaining that the rescue efforts, the relief efforts, and everything else not only looks half-hearted, but also looks very suspicious. And it's actually damaging the Biden administration politically. This is turning into, not even just the Biden administration, the Democrats in general, This is turning into a political disaster. Now, let's step back a bit. Biden went to visit Lahaina after 12 days. This comes after, people were giving him the finger. They were cursing him. A lot of the locals seemed to be very unhappy with him. There were photographs of him bowing his head with his eyes closed during one of the events. His team claims that he was showing respect. Others claim that he had actually fallen asleep during the event. Take whichever side you will on that. Biden has been known to fall asleep at events. But of course, in an act of solemnity, you might also bow your head and close your eyes. So who knows? That being said as well, people are comparing that to how he treated, for example, many people who were killed, in the whole BLM protest narratives, many of whom were actual, pretty serious repeat offender criminals. And they're noting that Biden reacted this way for certain political interests, BLM and so on, as did most of the Democrat establishment. And Lahaina happens, and, 12 days later, they decide to show up and not really do much in terms of how people feel. They feel that if it doesn't fit the political agenda, it doesn't get the attention. If it doesn't fit the race narrative, it doesn't get the attention. And they're looking not just at Biden on this, but the whole Democrat Party, which is seen as the incumbent power within the government right now. For a lot of people, again, it's a political disaster. Now, that being said, Biden did give a speech in Lahaina during this. He was also heavily criticized because it looked like he mostly made up a story. And, of course, this was one of the ones making rounds. He said that he experienced a house fire, too. People lost their homes. Children, 1 out of every 4, didn't show up for school. People are still missing. Thousands of people unaccounted for. Car windows are melting. Metal is melting. People are like, what the heck happened here? And Biden talks about how he had a small kitchen fire one time, and he was afraid he was going to lose his Corvette. But luckily they put it out. People are saying, first of all, like, having a little kitchen fire and you were worried you were going to lose your Corvette, that's not something you'd really tell people when, they just lost everything they had. For Biden's point, he's probably trying to empathize. He's saying, I feel bad for you. I've come close to losing this. I know the fear, but I can imagine what you're going through. That's the what he's insinuating, but I think it came off a bit wrong. Let's put it that way. And people are, of course, accusing him as well of making up most of the story. That they say it was make believe. 2 weeks again, people are saying how many lives, mind-blowing incompetence. And they're saying that they still have not activated the U.S. military or local relief efforts to really do much to help them. Of course, Hawaii is home to many U.S. military facilities, and the locals there feel that those should have been activated to declare a state of emergency, maybe have National Guard level relief efforts. They didn't do that. They used FEMA for it. And those of you who watch this show this past week will know that Biden gave a lot of money to FEMA specifically to help with disasters caused by, quote unquote, climate change. And so people are like, look, you're giving me $700. Look, imagine this. You lose your home. You maybe lose some family members. You lose your car. You lose everything you had. Hopefully you have some money in the bank. You go to get relief. They tell you didn't fill out the forms properly. They won't give you anything. They give you a kick down of $700. You need a place to sleep. What do? You go to the local hotel, and it's like $700 a night because it's Maui. You know what I mean? What are you going to do? And so people are notably very unhappy with the way they're being treated. And for them as well, because the media is not treating this very well. The local officials are being very disrespectful, even cutting people off, refusing to answer questions, and ending interviews when the topics get to things they don't want to talk about, like, hey, why did you guys not divert the water to properly deal with this disaster? Why do you have these real estate guys calling me to try to buy my property when you were trying to do this before, and now you're not giving me the means to take care of myself, which forces my hand to do something I never wanted to do, and you literally lose everything, and maybe you'll get enough money to go buy, put a down payment on a house on the U.S. mainland, which most of them probably don't want to do. This is the very difficult situation they're in, and notably, their anger is flaring up, and they're viewing this not just as something to be angry about in terms of how it's being handled, but against the entire Democrat establishment. This is turning into a very serious political disaster again. That said, let me show you how they're using it. Now, of course, you would think, given the way that the media has reacted to, like, a guy jogging through a construction facility and getting killed by a security guard, and it causes a national panic. You have people burning down buildings and protesting and looting stores because they're so angry about the one guy who got killed by a security guard. You have, for example, school shootings, which are terrible. Maybe 6 people killed. As soon as the narrative comes out that the person who killed everybody might be trans and the victims were Christian children, then it gets swept under the rug and the manifesto never sees the light of day. But you can see the media establishment getting very angry about it. You can see the media establishment going into a rage about it, demanding answers, demanding, for example, that there be stronger support for the families, press conferences, interviews with victims. It's all over the place. And you're not seeing this here when there's at least 250, 300 people known to be dead, 1,000 still missing. I mean, it's pretty dang serious. And what is the media doing? What is the establishment doing? What are the Democrat leaders doing? The ones who are seen as the incumbent power within the government right now. They're swooping in like vultures to use this politically. And the big narrative is they're saying, Biden, it is time to declare a climate emergency, which is something they've been saying for a long time, right? They've been saying this for a long time. In other words, this is not something unique. It's merely a tool that they're using to try to push for something they already wanted. It's like if you're at this, it's like if you have somebody who wants something from you. And, you stub your toe or you fall and get hurt, and your friend is like, well, you better give me that thing now. You feel they don't actually care about you. You feel they're not empathizing with you in the moment. You feel that they don't, that their concern is not genuine, because they're merely using the disaster or the harm or the crisis in the moment as a tool to get what that they already wanted. In this case, the climate emergency. Let me show you this. Politico has it. Yeah, Politico, which is very much in line with their narrative, of course. Biden faces calls to declare climate emergency as he heads to Maui. They say as President Joe Biden prepares to visit Maui, the Hawaiian island devastated by the deadliest wildfire in U.S. modern history, lawmakers and climate groups are begging. Yeah, in other words, politicians and lobbyists, you know what I mean, and their puppet NGOs or grassroots organizations are begging the White House to do more to prevent future climate-related disasters. Their argument: if the latest environmental catastrophe won't spur the president into action, what will? They're pushing for their agenda. It's what they've been wanting already, and they're merely using the bodies of these people as a tool to achieve what they want. And that is, these vultures, these total vultures swooping in and feeding off the bodies of American tragedy for their own sick benefit. That's the way it looks. That is what this looks like. Notably, again, Biden is not going with it. He doesn't seem to be budging on it, which is interesting to see. And again, a lot of news outlets also followed on that same note. They've been pushing this really hard. That being said as well, let me show you this. Daily Fetch. This is the other side of the narrative. Conservatives are like, it's actually conservative media mostly that's actually on the other side, talking to the victims, noting that the problems that happened locally that made this a much worse disaster than it had to be. they're noting, yeah, you could say it was, look, they're saying wildfire. What caused the wildfire? Global warming. Yeah, global warming caused it. No, unless you believe it's space lasers or something like that, like there were videos of downed power lines causing the fire. It was bad infrastructure that caused the fire. If you want to go by what's provable, power lines fell down. And again, there's video of it. You let power line, you let your infrastructure go to waste. Instead you're blowing money putting illegal aliens up in hotel rooms instead of using money for infrastructure, and this is what happens. And they're trying, in my opinion, the left saying it's global warming is no different from the right saying it was space lasers or something. It's the same dang thing. They're saying, oh, it's the climate emergency. No, it wasn't. It was bad infrastructure. It was down power lines. But here we are, right? It was a preventable disaster. It was a bad response to a preventable disaster. It was a bad infrastructure disaster. It was a bad policy disaster. It was a business and political greed disaster. These firms trying to buy up the properties, and the many year long term debate they've been having about rezoning and stuff, disaster, political and business interest. And then you had corrupt, filthy politicians, not diverting water and stuff like that, it being a political disaster. And then you have these vulture media working hand in hand with these lawmakers, trying to capitalize it for their own, sick political agenda disaster, while still not helping the people begging for help. That's what it is. You know what I mean? And interestingly, again, it's more the conservatives talking about this at this point, which you can kind of expect because, in this country we tend to have partisan politics within the media, and we like to attack each other depending on where the failures are. That being said, Daily Fetch has a story: leftists using Maui fire to pressure Biden into declaring national emergency over climate change. In other words, people are becoming aware of what's going on with this. That being said as well, you've had a lot of issues as well where you've had people starting wildfires, like in Canada. It turned out a lot of it was arson. You've had fires elsewhere. It turns out it was arson. I know in some of the California wildfires, quote unquote, I know police officers who arrested people driving around in their cars and throwing flares out their window, starting fires by throwing flares out their car windows, and the media calls it wildfires. Yeah, maybe wild climate activists working at the behest of corporate interest fires is what we should call them. Yeah, the only thing wild here are the climate activists. You know what I mean? That being said, I'm still on YouTube somehow. They recently deleted one of my videos. Notably, they deleted a video where I was talking about China and the World Economic Forum. Now, normally you'd think it's like, COVID misinformation or, talking about election integrity. They'll get you banned on YouTube. But they went after me for talking about China and the World Economic Forum. I don't know what policy that violates. They recently put all kinds of new stuff into place, and they deleted my video. That being said, those of you on YouTube, come over to EpochTV. They censor me quite a lot on YouTube. There's a lot of stuff I technically can't talk about. And even then, I'm not very good at not talking about it. So come for my sake, for your sake, come join us on EpochTV. We have a 25-cent flash sale going on, 25 cents a week. Come over, join us. We'll talk a bit more. Trump is saying he's going to destroy the cartels. He has an interview tonight with Tucker Carlson, airing at the same time as the RNC debate. We'll see how that all goes. And then, of course, we'll jump into some questions. So come over to EpochTV, breathe the fresh air of freedom. I'll show you a clip that we can't show on YouTube. We're going to show it anyway on J6. And join us again on EpochTV. I'll see you over there.
What was the process of actually putting this all together?
Many hours of finding the right camera angles and watching it. The first trouble started just after 1 o'clock.
45 pages, here it is right here. Donald Trump has been indicted.
Somber day for the country.
This all happened before President Trump's speech was over.
The founder of the Oath Keepers militia group is headed to prison for more than 18 years.
His lawyers didn't have this
No.
video. The video we're watching right now, his own lawyers did not
No.
have. There was a big question of what did the people do who actually did enter the building.
This is where we picked it up with the security footage that is new. At this point, the story dramatically changes.
The New Jersey man who assaulted a Capitol police officer on January 6th has been sentenced.
So this was withheld.
This was not shown to the defense.
That could be considered exculpatory evidence. This doesn't seem like what a lot of the media is showing.
It's going to change narratives no matter what your political perspective is. What we're after is the truth.